Hello, my name is Mrs. Yellerley, one of the assistant heads at Spence, and this is the third one of these little presentation videos that I have made. The first two were about reporting, and you can find those on the school website. In those first two presentations about reporting, we talked about progress, we mentioned assessment, so I thought it might be nice if we now did just a little bit of a chat about what assessment was. So there are 4 key issues that I'm going to be looking at over the next 5 minutes. We're going to have a little bit of a recap, like we're in a lesson, about what we said progress was in one of the previous presentations. We're then going to have a think about what assessment actually is, particularly how that is in a classroom. What do we do with the information that assessment provides us with, and how does assessment lead to progress, which was what we spent a lot of the last presentation talking about. So just a very, very quick reminder, when children are in school, they are progressing through curricula, whether they're in Key Stage 3 or whether they're at GCSE. And we did say the last time that progressing through a curriculum is a student knowing more, doing more, remembering more, cumulatively, week after week, month after month, in all of the different subjects as they traverse through school, reaching at the end of year 11 an end point where they're ready to move on to something new, and it's our job to make the students ready to do that. So that is what progress is: knowing, doing, remembering more and more as we teach it to them. So how does assessment play a role in that? What is assessment? Now, we use the term assessment in many walks of life, and certainly with reference to school and the curriculum, assessment is the means by which we see what it is that the students know, what they can do, what they can remember, and it's how we measure progress. We assess the students to see how much progress through the curriculum they are making. What might that look like? Well, the first thing it might look like is on-the-spot assessment, just the day-to-day things that teachers do with students all of the time. And often that on-the-spot assessment is checking what the student knows in that given moment as we are teaching them. Are they hearing us? Are they remembering what we're saying to them? Do they understand it? And we will be assessing in that given moment by using questions in class, verbal ones quite often, the day-to-day classwork that students are presented with. It may be activities that involve the whole class showing whether or not they're following the teacher by using answers on a whiteboard, and it can be low stakes quizzes that will check what information the students have picked up on in that lesson. Equally, particularly in a subject like mine, history, the students can know an awful lot and remember a lot of facts, but the key for us is, can they use those facts? Can they apply them in a broader context? Can they write an essay about the causes of the Battle of Hastings, for instance, as well as remembering all the key facts? So assessment is also often needed to check that the students can do, that they can apply the information in a broader context. That is often through extended writing. It can be through presentations. In a practical subject like PE, it can involve playing a match. Can the students take the principles and the knowledge that they have learned about, let's say, defending in football, and can they apply that in the match situation? So that is another way in which we might assess. And of course, when we tend to think about assessment, we will often think about tests. And of course, tests, summative is what we tend to call that. Tests test a larger body of learning. So they will check on what the student knows and can do and can remember after knowledge and skills have accumulated over time. Tests therefore require that additional skill of revision and study, and oftentimes a student can demonstrate great knowledge and application in the moment at the time, but it can be a little bit more challenging to try and do the same thing after months have passed and the student is presented with a test. But those 3 types of assessment would tend to form the bulk of how we assess the students here in school. So what do we do with the information that assessment gives us? Well, obviously we feed back to the student. This feedback might be on the spot, in the moment, at the time, on that correct or incorrect answer. It might be written feedback on a test or on a large piece of work, a piece of extended writing, for instance. Marking, for want of a better word, that is a form of feedback that we will offer students very regularly. We can, of course, as discussed in the last presentation, at certain key points, offer progress descriptors or grades. At GCSE it would be a grade, wouldn't it? So the student does a test for us, we will tell them that that equates to a grade 4, and at Key Stage 3 we use the level descriptors that we talked about in the last presentation: secure, mastered, working towards. These allow the students to know where they are in that given moment in comparison to what is expected of them, and sometimes in comparison to the people around them. And of course we tell you, we report to parents via the attribute reports, which we've talked about in one of the previous presentations. We will report to you at regular stages during the year the progress data, the actual grades, again for want of a better word, at Key Stage 3, mastered, secured, working towards, and at Key Stage 4 there would be numerical GCSE grades. Again, so you, the parents, know where your child is currently at the moment, and what of course needs to be done to progress them further, if that is what is expected of them. So in a nutshell, and to conclude, assessment leads to progress because it provides us with the information that we need that will allow us to see where a student's gaps are, where we need to do more work. It feeds back on their strengths and weaknesses so the children can replicate their strengths in other scenarios and address their weaknesses. And we can move them forward with advice and feedback. We can help them improve. In short and in a nutshell, assessment helps us to help the students progress. And that's what we're all here for, and that's what we all want. Thank you.